Welcome to the session. I think, unfortunately, the ICT authority has not been reachable, so perhaps she has gotten something else to cover up. So it is the three of us in this session. Welcome, everyone. We now have 56 participants, and we will discuss a little bit about green procurement, sustainable electronics, and related issues of the benefits also of refurbished items circulating and not just new. So I welcome Sören Enholm, TCO certified Sweden, and Sean Andrews, head of technology at CCI Kenya, to this session. How are you guys today?
Very good. Very busy, but very good.
Lovely. Same with you, I'm sure, Sarah.
Yes, I'm fine
So
as well.
I was thinking, great. So what we will do is you guys will have a moment to present who you are, where you come from, what you're doing when it comes to keeping sustainability within the electronics, and then we will have a short discussion, see if anyone has any questions in the panel, and then we go for that. So is there anyone who wants to start first, or I just assign you according to my list here?
So let me go first.
Yes, you are first on my list also, so that's perfect. Go ahead. The floor is yours, Sean.
Thank you. So so CCI Kenya is a contact center or business process outsourcer, and essentially we provide services to multiple clients across the globe. There's a company that started in South Africa, and has grown exponentially, and we're now expanding our footprint into Africa. The first foray into the rest of Africa was into Kenya, which is where I'm currently based, and we're going from strength to strength. So I think from a procurement point of view, because we deal with a lot of endpoints, call it electronic endpoints, we sort of took a decision in South Africa to start looking at a better cost option on procuring new equipment for our contact centers, and part of that exercise was looking at both new and refurb equipment that was in the market. And what we found was the value that we got of a refurb unit was a lot more attractive than a new unit. And yes, corporate policies, etc., from a procurement standpoint, sort of lead towards procuring new endpoints with warranties that can be upheld by OEMs and manufacturers. However, we took a different approach, and we essentially are in the refurb market currently. So a lot of our equipment that we look at across our IT infrastructure is refurb first, and a new second. And what that does is essentially gives us the ability to find a really effective endpoint unit that we utilize for our day-to-day operations at a lower price point. But the benefit of that is the fact that we are then supporting the circular economy with these refurb units. So Kenya, not necessarily the biggest refurb market locally. However, a lot of the distributors and vendors that we deal with on a day-to-day basis reach out to manufacturers and OEMs and distributors, and we sort of look to see what's in the supply chain to essentially evaluate what options we have, and we normally process those options from a refurb side. So currently we have about 2,500 endpoints in Kenya. Let's call it 2,500 PCs. And of those 2,500, I would say at least 2,000 of them, so 3/4 of them are refurb units. Currently we're buying a Lenovo brand. So they're all branded Lenovo. They all come out of the supply chain, whether in the UK, Middle East or Africa, and we sort of import those units into Kenya, and we utilize those units for our day-to-day operations. So to mitigate the warranty aspect of it, what we do is we always procure 2 to 5% additional over and above our actual need, and that suffices to give us a hospital stock availability, capability that essentially we swap out units internally, and any unit that doesn't work, whether it's out of box failure, which is very low, or we sort of run and it fails within the first 6 months, we swap out with our own internal stock, and then we earmark that for repair, and then we'll send those units for repair. So that's sort of our approach to procurement, and like I said a little bit earlier, that is based on both our critical server infrastructure as well as our endpoint infrastructure at CCR. We then also have a policy around e-waste. So we've actively been working with WeCenter to identify assets within our organization that cannot be repaired and are due for disposal. And we liaise with WeCenter to have those units audited and then removed, and then obviously we go down the conformity of having waste certificates presented to us and drawn up for CCR. There is no requirement from CCR itself to go down this path. However, from an international standpoint, a lot of our clients are based in the US, the UK, and Australia, and whenever we do have a need to present our sort of procurement approach and our call it approach to e-waste, we present those certificates for that. So not necessarily a contractual obligation, but it is something that we do internally at CCR, and it's been driven a lot by myself in Kenya, and I implemented a few policies when I was working for a company in South Africa. So definitely a good approach to the circular economy, and we'll continue to do that as we grow. We're forecasting to be, I don't know, close on 15,000 staff in South Africa, and probably close on 4,000 to 7,000 staff in the next few years in Kenya. So we'll continue that approach to buying endpoints, and where we need to reach out to OEMs and manufacturers and distributors, we do so actively whenever we have a need to grow. So that's sort of the approach that we take at CCR Kenya, which is great for the environment. As we continue to grow, we'll continue to look at how best we dispose of our assets via the e-waste process, and with companies like WeCenter, and then we actively work with distributors and OEMs on how do we seek out and procure refurbished items globally. That's me. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Sean. And we will move immediately to the next panelist, and then we will have a discussion on the slide.
Sorry.
Okay, I didn't really get it there, but I will try to share my screen and have a presentation as well. Could you tell me, please? Do you see the presentation? Okay, there you are. All right. Okay, so as Simone already named, I work on station development.
We can't see the presentation, Sören.
Certification.
You're breaking.
Slide here. Or there we are. So the certification is global, which is quite since the market is a global market. For IT products, typically one you find in the offices, like PCs, space, phones, and so on, but also for the products you find data centers, like equipment and so on. We have been doing this for 30 years now, and it's a complete certification with both environmental criteria in the whole life cycle of the products. We work according to an ISO standard 4024, and what we're striving for is a sustainable cycle for IT practice. We're a little bit what we see regarding purchasing. It was a good idea to build the site since it's really to so what we see in Europe regarding the state of green product purchasing is in Northern Europe, especially in public sector. Of maturity,
I'm sorry, Sören.
However, this context is interesting to the collection and disposal waste is legislated in EU with directive.
It's breaking very much, so we can't hardly hear what you're saying. I'm sorry, but please.
Okay, maybe I should stop sharing. Let me see. Now I don't share, right? Sean, do you hear me now? Is it better now?
Yeah, I can see you now and I can hear you.
All right. Okay. So I skip the slides then and just take it without them. Yes.
I'm sorry. I'm back.
All right. Yes. So as I said before, I guess you didn't hear that much from what I said. So I will repeat it quickly. So I work for TC Development, and we are running a sustainability certification for IT products, especially the IT products found in the offices like PCs, displays, and phones, and so on. But also the products you find in data centers like servers and storage equipment and network equipment. We have been doing this for 30 years now. And we have expanded the certification over time. So now it's really a complete certification with both environmental and social criteria in the whole life cycle. And we operate this certification according to an ISO standard called 4024 for third certifications. So a little bit about what we see happening in green purchasing trend, and especially for IT products. TISO certified is a global certification. That's quite natural because the IT product market is global. So we follow the market in that sense. And if we look at different regions in the world, we see in Europe, especially Northern Europe, a high maturity of green IT product purchasing in public sector, and also quite high maturity in private sector. However, in Southern Europe, it's not the same. they see islands of maturity in public sector and really no maturity in private sector. However, in this context, it's interesting to know that collection and disposal of e-waste is legislated in EU with the WE directive. So that is, of course, taken care of in EU countries. If we go to the other regions, US and Canada, it's about the same as in Southern Europe. We see some islands of a maturity in public sector, but really not that much in private. Also in US and Canada, collection waste is legislated in most states, but there are challenges with the disposal actually in many states. If we go to Central and South America, the maturity, what we see is really not that big regarding this. And if we go over to Asian Pacific region, also there we see some islands of maturity in public sector, but not that much in private sector. However, we see work connected to collection and disposal of e-waste in some countries more than in others. And in Africa, we don't see that high maturity either. It's what we see is mostly work connected to collection and disposal of waste. So from our perspective, it's of course very interesting to see what is happening in Northern Europe. So I will just give you a little intro to the trends in Northern Europe. And first, it's not only green. It's very common also to include social aspects and speak about sustainable purchasing rather than green purchasing. And also in Northern Europe, it's not only management of end life, it's really looking at the whole life cycle of the products, from manufacturing, the whole supply chain, and also to all the way to recycling. And what we also see more and more in Northern Europe is proactive work in reducing waste and e-waste and other IT product environmental and social footprints. So, I mean, what the focus or the buzzword or the concept that the purchasers are looking at is, of course, circularity. That's the focus. Also, it's very important for the purchasers in Northern Europe with independent verification. So industry self-declarations are not accepted in a big way any longer. You see it in some parts, but not that much any longer. The purchasers want independent verification. And also what is becoming more and more common is sustainability reporting for in both public and private sector. And sustainability performance is becoming more and more part of accounting and reporting. So we are with TISO certified, and the tools and services we provide together with the certification, we are addressing these all these areas and also others, but these are the main ones I want to bring up here. Also going in a bit into the criteria in certification, as I said, we have both environmental and social criteria for the whole life cycle of the products. But one of the hotter areas right now is circularity, and really it's a lot about prolonging the life length of the products. And I think Sean's example was really good, jacking into this. So what we have done, we have looked a lot at the model of Ellen MacArthur Foundation for circularity or circular economy. And we have created criteria in the certification first to extend life length of the IT products for the first user, for instance, to make them easier to repair. So that's one example, but there are a bunch of other criteria as well. We have also included criteria for making it easier to have a second life of the products. One example there is secure data removal. The first user needs to be ensured that their data is not going to the next user in any way. We have also included criteria for parts harvesting. So when the whole product cannot be used any longer, it can be taken apart, and different parts in the product can be used in other products, for instance. And finally, I've included also criteria for recycling to make it easier to recycle the materials in the products. So that's a short intro to TCO Certified and the circularity criteria in TCO Certified connected to the green IT product purchasing trends that we see around the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sören. And I'm sorry to say I'm breaking up now and then. I don't know why I'm using this thing here, and I don't know what. So, which just shows how this digital thing is just very high topic. I'm glad you said it jacks in well. Let me see if we have any questions. Discussion. Encourage corporates to procure refurbished laptops for their staff. Well, or how do you do that internally? Sean, you said CCI in general doesn't have specific policies for this, but since you are talking about the value that it actually has created for you, it's an economical value, but you all see.
So, Simone, are you there? We can see a picture, but you seem to be muted.
Yeah, just actually turn the video off and then mute it yourself. So, just wait for it to come back.
Can you hear me now? Okay. Not yet. All right. Do you see the chat? Oh, we can hear you. Ah, great. So, I was saying, this is wonderful, and I'm happy to hear the progression that TCO Certified you've been pushing for a long time. And now you can see that it's also making strides here. Even someone as CCI now taking own initiatives here in Kenya. In the chat, we have a question. What mechanisms do you use to encourage corporates to procure refurbished laptops for their staff? And we can't maybe answer in full because we don't do that particularly. But Sean, are you still there? You dropped out.
All right, Sean, I think you have one question there. Can you see it?
I think Sean is dropped out, correct?
It's in the Q&A tab.
I have put some questions in the chat, if that's helpful. Is anyone live?
All right, I see a
I am
question from
sorry.
Simone in the
Great.
discussion tab. So the first one is, what could contribute to individuals preferring the purchase of new items rather than refurbished items? I guess, do you mean the opposite? What could contribute to individuals preferring the purchase of refurbished items rather than new items, I guess, is the question. Well, I think personally this is a trend. It's in Northern Europe we see that it becomes more and more trendy to buy refurbished items rather than new items. So I think that is a trend that is ongoing, connected to sustainability.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, now we can hear you. I can hear you.
Yay. I'm using my phone, which is a Safaricom line. So
All right.
now maybe it works. Yeah, thank you for answering. Thank you, Sören, for trying to keep the conversation going. I'm so sorry for the inconveniences. Good, yeah. And could standardization of refurbished item encourage its purchase, and which criteria of standardization could be applied? Because what we see is, of course, people choosing new because they might think it's much, much better. But if we could show and prove that a device that might be 3 years old, but it has gone through a refurbished process, and can be once again certified as almost new or have some sort of standardization, maybe that would help. What do you think, Sören? And maybe anyone else also in the conversation here, feel free to do your input.
Yeah, I mean, I think standardization could help, and there is a classification system which you can see at refurbishers. They speak about Class A, Class B, Class C products, and however, this is not standardized, and the classification differs from refurbisher to refurbisher. So this is actually something we are looking into. Maybe if we could help to get some kind of standardization in place regarding that. Otherwise, what we think is really important is standardization of connectors and components, so it's easier to keep your old peripherals and also to exchange the standardized parts when they are broken. So there are lots of things that can be done there, and that's actually what we focus a lot on with TISU Certified.
Very good. Yeah. And we have a comment from Malcolm Whitehouse in the section here, who says their company runs on refurbished IT equipment and his personal laptop is almost 10 years now. We should lead by example in the industry, which I agree upon. My own computer is 5.5 years, so at least. And running strong, except for today. So I will need to do some updates, I think, until tomorrow. But yes, the standardization, we noticed that ourselves now when we're trying the pilot with Revivo on selling refurbished spare parts for phones, that we are left to grade them ourselves, what is grade A, B, C, and we would look forward to that kind of standardization procedure or something that says this is how you. Oh, welcome back, Sean. So I had a question. What could contribute to individuals or companies preferring to purchase new items rather than refurbished items? What are you said 3/4 of your units are refurbished, basically. And what is the technical or whatever, what is it that makes your decision when you buy a new rather than a refurbished? Is it availability? Is it specific? Yeah, instead of me giving you the answers.
Sorry, I couldn't connect. I don't know what happened there. But anyway, so the main criteria for us is price point. Although we're a large organization, we run at a very low margin. So we started looking in the markets at refurb units specifically around cost. And we do find that currently, I'm looking in the market at the moment, and I've ordered over the last year probably about 700 or 800 endpoints. And we find the cost is anywhere from about 50 to 65% of, which is a huge saving for us. I mean, when I place orders, I'm ordering very large quantities. So, I'm looking at 350 units every time I place an order. So, we're talking about millions of dollars worth of equipment here. Which is why I sort of stated that, part of our procurement process when we do go down the refurb route is to procure additional units as a buffer, just to cover any warranty. So we are looking at OEMs and distributors that come with warranties. But a lot of the time in the refurb space, we get anywhere from about 1 month to 6 months worth of warranty with a distributor or the supplier that provides the unit. Those aren't necessarily covered by OEMs and manufacturers. However, we have started that process now where we are looking at our procurement model with our vendors to see if we can procure directly from the OEMs, like the likes of Lenovo, Hewlett-Packard, HP, Dell, etc. So the refurb market is very much a hit and miss. You do have to look and see what's available. But we don't necessarily go down the standardization route of makes and models. What we look at is specifications. And because we're using so many units, we then standardize it into our space. So, we then have the ability to manage 300 endpoints instead of managing 1, 2, or 4. So from a standardization point of view, pretty much we have 2 models currently that we currently procure. If we go down the route of finding a limitation in supply chain with that particular model in the refurb supply chain, we may then look at a different make or model. But that decision is based on what are the future procurement challenges around that particular item. So yeah, Lenovo is our current preferred choice of refurb unit for.
How about other types of ICT? Because it's mainly, as I understand it, computer units and maybe accessories for those. What about networking equipment and other electronics? Do you see any sustainability issues on that side, like refurbished or any other that has been?
Yeah, so pretty much we've built our entire server environment or server host environment using refurb models. So essentially we've procured Hewlett-Packard was the best value at the time, and we had an environment that was built already around an HP product on our server stack. So we reached out to 2 or 3 of our vendors to look at finding the refurb equivalent of the particular models that we have in stock or in operation. So we've gone down a route. We've procured about 6 servers, HP servers that are identical to the ones that we currently have. with 6-month warranties as refurbs. And we'll continue to look at refurb as an option, whether it's network infrastructure. Currently, we're procuring Cisco equipment from the US, which we fly in, and all of that is ex-carrier grade refurbished equipment. So pretty much 70 to 80% of our deployment of IT infrastructure, whether it's endpoints or servers or networking equipment, is all refurbished.
That's great. Sounds lovely. Unfortunately, you have to bring it in from the US. I'm thinking, but yeah, things are moving. And new ones they come from.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's the challenge. So I think the challenge in a country like Kenya is, the big corporates like the Safaricoms, the banking industry, follow a very strict guideline around standardization. So they'll be buying particular endpoints, and it's about us looking at those endpoints to see if we can utilize them in our space. So if they go through a circular e-waste or asset disposal once their depreciation has kicked in, and they sort of put those units out into the market, those are potentially an option for us. Obviously, because we are here, we have a particular make and model that we need. So, we go into the market looking for things like thin clients that can fit on the back of monitors, which is not necessarily the approach that a lot of other corporates take. So that's the reason why we then have to bring equipment in from all outside countries.
I understand that. Lovely. And we also, another question that you missed out on was if there was a specific standardization on refurbished, is that a value point for you, or like that would make you choose it easier if you could have a verification that, yes, this is pretty much as new? Would that change sometimes your buying point? You mentioned warranty. Of course, that must be a big issue and worth something. If refurb have some sort of standardization and then give warranty, would that be almost equal as new then?
Yes, and that's how we treat the units. So currently our procurement policy around refurb is to buy A-grade refurb. So where possible, if we can get a certification that says it is a grade A refurb, which is essentially an as-new device, very limited aesthetic defects, has gone through a process that all components have been tested and comes with a warranty, then 100% that's the route that we go. It gets a little bit tricky when you sort of go down the route of a B or C grade, where essentially you're getting a box drop with a whole lot of equipment, and out-of-box failures are potentially an option, as well as component failures in the endpoints within the first 6 months. So we don't necessarily go down the route. If we do look at the refurb, it's definitely A grade with a warranty.
Lovely, thank you. Do we have any other questions in the chat box? Let me see. No, not really. I want to make you aware of the poll that we have. Would you or could you buy refurbished? This is just a general to all the participants. Would you buy refurbished electronics? Yes, no, or maybe. Kindly answer the poll. And then you will find handouts also for any presentations that have been the TCO certified, which we couldn't see really. I'm sorry about that, some technical difficulties. I think we've really shown some practical examples of how the thoughts are going, and actually that the circular economy where refurbished items is a great part is actually beneficial for companies also. You talked about the margins and the costs, and we need to have the people, planet, and profit and prosperity in the same room. So I'm happy that actually we are proving that it's working that way. And I'm sure tomorrow when we step into more circular economy issues, it's going to showcase even more. Now Sören is back. Welcome again. This session was very interesting. We've been going in and out, all of us. Sorry about that, but it happens. Last year we had some electricity downfalls, and shortages, but we managed anyway. So this is nothing actually. So I'm very grateful. We have touched upon standards that are set, and also the opportunities we have to benchmark with, like TCO certified, and in this case then Europe. But I know you work beyond there. And then also seeing a local example here, CCI Kenya, and CCI derives from South Africa, like you mentioned. So how we as companies and organizations can push the development for sustainable electronics forward. I'm very grateful for your participation, and I would love for you to have a short sentence as a closing remark, both of you. So Sören, kindly, if you would close this, and then Sean.
Yeah, I think what is really interesting we have been doing this for 30 years now, and just the last couple of years we have seen the interest go up an enormous amount compared to before. So it's our time now. Things are happening.
Sean.
Yes, I think that as more and more corporations and companies globally start looking at the refurb market, it sort of creates that supply chain that doesn't necessarily exist. And Soren's right. I mean, when we started looking at refurbs, it was really what was available in the market. And currently now what we're getting to is a stage where I can actually dictate what make and model I'm looking for. And a lot of the time that unit is available, whether it is locally within Africa or globally. So the more that we sort of reach out and look at that as an option, the bigger the supply chain will get, which is great.
Thank you. Very well put. And I hope to see you guys perhaps next year again when we do our annual. And then I want to see that we have sped up this development even further. And I'm sure with the inspiration of today, more companies feel obliged and encouraged to actually look at this market of refurbished and sustainable electronics, to think through what you are. Yes, and we immediately get some feedback in the chat box. Thanks, it was great insights. Thank you so much for that. I hope you might tune in tomorrow, not just you panelists, but all you who are still with us, even though it's 4 p.m. here. I know we have people from Asia as well, so they are way into their evening, and Europe, they are in the midday still. So thanks a lot. Take care, and I will go for my closing remarks. Or do I stay in this session maybe? I'm not sure. I need to look at the team. Leon. This is the ending session as well. All right. I wasn't sure. So I'm happy if you stay with me. So today we have gone through and policy relation. We had a quite vivid discussion on EER, the extended producer responsibility, and the producer responsibility organization development in Africa, where it was shared how these producer responsibilities, it sounds easy, but it is intricate, because when you form the legislation, first of all, and then an organization to coordinate all of this responsibility, there is need of digital tools and solutions and standards and data and then, of course, a framework that either forces anyone who brings in electronics to this system. We had witness of that there is always opportunity or risks for players who are not very serious and not participate in the system. So that was very interesting, and of course we could have a full conference only on that. The same goes with later on the vocational training and capacity building in the industry, showcasing a curriculum that we are producing here and developing. And I know there are other trainings, so I hope that this conference will also, anyone who has something similar, please get in touch, because good can definitely get better. And a shout out to everyone who was part of that, which all the actors here in Kenya, basically, EWIC and in Bungoma as well, and Bioserve, and ourselves. And then we had some really good examples from the reuse, repair, refurbishing industry, which is coming on strong, and a lot of it is happening online, which improves the flow of items and the also availability to find these actors within the industry. We also talked about standardizations that are coming on the ISO standards for circular economy, which will help this our industry to also develop and become more standardized, which will empower also. So that was that. And now after the lunch break, we continued with the role of the private sector. We heard from a bank and from Médecins Sans Frontières and also telecom company Safaricom, how they work with sustainability in Enholm, and also specifically on electronic waste management with initiatives and also quite defined structures to safely take care of this and also spread awareness in their own organizations, which is a great initiative. We ended off with the green procurement, sustainable electronics, where we need to think, where are electronics made? How are they made? What are the conditions for people who are making them? And then those questions goes throughout the value chain, with the transport, with the storage, with the sales, etc. And of course, once we have the items in our hands, that we make sure we can use them as long as possible, so they are easy to repair and also update software, etc., so that we can refurbish and reuse them again and again for as long as possible. So I want to thank everyone that has participated today. I want to thank the team behind the scenes who are conducting all the technology here. I wish and hope to see you tomorrow again when we start off. We will start already at 8:30 a.m. East African time, which I know in UK will be very early, and as well as in Ghana will be 3 hours ahead of that. So I'm sorry for starting so early. That will be 5:30 for you guys. I'll be impressed if I see you already then. Otherwise, we continue tomorrow with bridging the digital gap with refurbished ICT equipment, urban mining of e-waste materials, quality routines, and problematic fractions, innovations and technologies in e-waste management, and environmental social impact of the e-waste action to be taken. In the afternoon, we will talk about investments in circular solutions and startup support, sustainable production design, and the role of producers in this as we move forward into the circular economy and its role in promoting resource recovery. And we'll end off with capacity building and awareness creation at large and in a small personal way of how to do that. So stay tuned tomorrow. Looking forward to see you all, and thank you and goodbye.